We are live. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Jacob Adams. We have Drew Cirillo,
I'm Drew Cirillo.
and today we have a special guest, Mr. Lawrence Lanoff, who is the director and CEO of TantraX.com. He's a sex positive, spiritually oriented, streetwise life coach, and he's here to share with us some tips on how to break through some of our sexual plateaus and some of the taboos that we sometimes face in life about sex. So, Mr. Lawrence.
Hey, good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you
definitely.
for being here. I think, to start out, can you give us a little bit of background? Like, what's your story? Like, how did you get to where you are now? Like, what got you interested in doing just what you're doing and all that stuff?
Sure. I mean, the crazy part about my path has been that growing up in New York City and on the streets of New York, like that's kind of the streetwise part of what I do. That growing up that way, one of the things that happened is I had the chance to meet a Tantra master, this South American, really crazy, awesome Tantra master, and he started teaching me about like sexual energy and just started introducing some ideas when I was young. Like I was just a kid, and he started like introducing me to the idea that there is this thing that we could call sexual energy, and that having some mastery over that can be a super empowering thing. So where this all ties into taboos and relationship stuff and some of the things we're going to be talking about today is that most of us are just getting dragged around by our experience, if you will, of our sexual energy, right? We're just dragged around. It's a little bit, sex energy is a little bit like a bull. You know, you put a nose ring in a bull and you just pull them around wherever you want to go. That's where that comes from, because it's like that. Like sex energy is like that. Like if I put a nice image in front of you, your body is going to have a reaction to that. And then if you're aware of that reaction, it's going to cause some chemical changes. It's going to cause all kinds of things. Maybe how your mind is thinking. That stuff is what sex energy is. So part of my background was I just started to get a sense of the depth of it and the mastery of it at a very early age. So I actually had like full orgasm control by the first time I had sex, which was really crazy because it's like, I'm going to admit that's not normal. And, and there are some, I have a friend of mine who's a close friend I've known for quite a while, and he's like, dude, it's not normal. Like, it's not normal. Like, it's just really hard for a guy to get his head around the idea that there are so many different ways to play with sex. But for me, one of the reasons I teach this is because all roads lead to sex. All roads lead to sex. Regardless of your opinion, regardless of your religion, your belief systems, all roads, one way or another, will lead to sex and will directly affect your happiness and well-being. So that's kind of how I came to this. So I was like, learned about sex, had a long run as a kind of in a traditional New Age spiritual world, then completely snapped out of that and realized that I needed to be talking to people about reality, not about shit that doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
And then that really changed my whole approach. So I still teach quote unquote kind of spiritual well-being, but you can't talk about that unless you're talking about psychological and sexual well-being. And anybody who's like, oh no, I've transcended sex, well, first of all, they're probably miserable fucks. And secondly, they're lying, right? They're just like, yeah, no, I'm really happy. I've like transcended. It's like, give me a break, man. So that's why I say, like, I just deal with reality. Like, what's the reality of reality?
Now, what about gurus, like people that, like, at a high level, very, like the Hindu sect that may, I know priests get a lot of flack because they're sometimes caught up in these sexual scandals, so we're not going to go into them so much. What about these people that are Hindus or that say they're gurus of sorts, and maybe do you think it's possible they have harnessed their sexual energy in that respect, like mastered it that much?
Do you want my, like, are we kid gloves off?
Really unfiltered.
I think we should pull the gloves off here and just
okay.
let it,
They're full of shit. Okay?
Excellent.
There's nobody who's mastered sexual energy because, let me put it a different way. How were you born?
Well, I mean, naturally, sex, yeah. I mean, that's pretty easy.
Somebody fucked, and then out of that fucking came fertilization, and out of that came you.
Right. So today, I think we're going to be definitely. That's why we talked about the controversies, because I think that from what we're gathering and watching some of your videos, like the belief system, me and Drew really started seeing a theme of sort of what beliefs are good and what beliefs are limiting. So there's clearly some people that have limiting beliefs towards sex or religion, and these beliefs sort of keep some people boxed in to not exploring beyond. And I think that's sort of, most people understand that. And then just wanted to get eventually towards the end, or at some point get an idea of what you thought would be a healthy place to aim for, as you're a guide, a spiritual type of healer. I think in some respects that's what I'm getting from what you're saying.
No. That would be incorrect.
Okay.
I do not. I mean, yeah. Look, here's the reality, man. Regardless of what people say, like healers and all this stuff, like, I'm not a healer. Okay? At best, I'm a magician.
Okay.
Okay? But I'm a magician who does magic tricks, and I'm willing to say, like, I'm never going to say to somebody, like, I'm the Wizard of Oz. Like, that doesn't help what I teach. I'm a magician who understands the magic trick. Okay? That's why I can look at you in the eye and I can go, these Hindu, whatever, I don't care, fill in the blank, man. It doesn't matter who. They're full of shit if they say they've transcended, because you can't transcend what you are. Okay? You can't transcend. Everybody on planet Earth has come through sex.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So to say it would be like, if you have anything to say about sex, it's just made up stories, because that's all there is. And then then there's this kind of mythology that's been out there for the last 10,000 years, some sort of, kind of, what's the word? Immaculate conception mythology, and that's gone down for quite a while.
Well,
that's Jesus' story, right? That's pretty much Jesus, and that's a famous one.
Well, that's a famous one, but it started way earlier than that. That's just the popular one right now.
Yeah,
but
it's like Horus and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You got the Egyptian mythology, like this kind of idea that what it's to do is to kind of say, like, hey, no, there's this hybrid god creature that didn't come the same way that you and I did.
Mm.
Right. But of course there's no, I mean, just on the most simple, basic level, if in fact there were somehow that some creature, like, what would that even look like? They just pop out of nowhere. There's an egg that fertilizes and becomes a human on the table. I mean, what are we talking?
Right.
There's literally no sane reference point for that. It's not like people sort of spontaneously emerge of the 7 billion people. There's a billion of them that just kind of pop like popcorn, like, boom, oh, I'm here. Whoa. Right. So,
right.
So there's literally zero evidence. There's lots of evidence of the mythology of it, and I get the point of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Drew and I originally met by discussing some of your videos, we were talking about, we originally, I believe you put one on, was it slut shaming, or was that?
Yeah, slut shaming. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that would be and Drew had a lot of questions.
Well, we were talking last night about it. We were kind of...
What were some of your questions, Drew? You had some for Lawrence.
Oh, about slut shaming?
Well, I mean, I know that that's sort of how we met, and then that's how we're like, let's see if Lawrence has something to say about it and everything like that. So
I'd love to talk about slut shaming.
Yeah, okay. Just briefly touch on that, or if just briefly touch on the slut shaming thing.
Right. So I mean, just to get, I think, everyone up to speed, Jacob, you and I disagreed a little bit because...
Yeah. Drew thinks it should never be said, the word slut, and I think, like, if a girl goes crazy, cheating on you, doing all types of things behind your back, maybe, I think that it could, you're in a state of anger. In other words, there's a point of view that could say, well, she has a lot of issues, God be with her, God help her, but the angry part of me that might be jealous and hurt would say, that's a slut. Do you know what I mean? So that's when I think it should be used correctly, but Drew says maybe never use the word correctly, or it's never supposed to be used, and I just, that's where I thought we would talk about.
Right, so... Okay, so slut shaming. Okay, first of all, let's back up. Like, so setting down a law, like a rule, and saying you should never or you always, like that alone is what I call binary or black and white thinking.
Right.
Right. And we've all been trained in binary black and white thinking. It's either this or it's that. Okay. Right. So I'm going to push aside that whole conversation about should we or shouldn't we, because basically we're not binary creatures. The issue with slut shaming is that all humans, if we're, and I'm not saying all, like every single one, there's always going to be exceptions, but I'm saying most humans are interested somewhat socially, and we're interested in sex. It's just how it is, evidenced by porn, by conversations, by locker room talk, by just in private spaces. If we have an opportunity to look at or talk about sex or have discussions, we're going to.
Yeah, and like right now.
Exactly, that's right. So that is the first thing to understand. The second thing is that slut is really a way to control a woman's vagina. And it happens to be one of those words. There are two. There's slut and whore. And for a female functioning in a social world, those are the two worst things you could say. Like a woman can have the most exceptional career in the world, and in 2 words I can be like, oh, well, that's slut. Like she slept her way to the top. And now I've just demeaned her entire career. It doesn't matter if it's true or it's not true. Like, who knows? Like, who cares? It's nobody's business. Like, we don't slut shame guys. We don't be like, oh, he fucked his way to the top. Like, we'd be like, yeah, awesome, man, he fucked his way to the top.
Right.
Like, it's not. So what we have to understand is that things have purpose. They don't come out of nowhere. So the idea with slut is really, when I'm teaching women, I teach them how to own that word so that when they hear the word slut, they're like, yeah, thank you. And that's the first thing. And the second, so for them, I totally encourage the word and use of the word slut. Yes, please. If you're using slut to describe sexual behavior in a negative way, then I would just invite you to do your own self-reflective work, and that's part of what I do the coaching on. Right? You want to do your own, like, why am I angry? What are my frameworks? What are my beliefs about sex that I'm so angry at this woman that I use the worst word that I could possibly use for her to describe this situation? And you went through, like, you were like, well, she did this, and she did this, and she did this, and she did this, therefore she's a slut, right?
Well, that was an example. I'm just saying.
No, I get it.
It doesn't happen. I'm just saying, under those circumstances, I think that's when someone might use it correctly. It's not to go around saying, hey, this girl stepped her way to the top, slut. That I think is an incorrect use of that. That's judgmental. You have no proof of that. That's just you sort of projecting.
Right. Well, also, here's the thing. Like, if we just pull the shaming side of it out, then there's really not a lot to say about, like, a woman's sexual behavior. Is like, what? Who cares, right? Now, I'm not saying, like, the thing you're talking about are relationships agreements, right? These are adult discussions. I don't need to shame you. If somebody's coming to me with that story, I just have to be like, yo, you guys don't know how to communicate, obviously. And that's where I would say work on those skills, right? Because by the time you're like that angry and things are that screwed up, the reality is there have been a lot of other signs along the way,
right,
that have been missed. That doesn't just fall off the truck out of nowhere. Does that make sense?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what I'm really saying is, what I ultimately try to teach people, help people do, is remove shame as a teaching modality. And so like, even that, let's take this hypothetical girl, us coming up and being like, bah, 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 that's not going to do it. When was the last shamed you that you were like, wow, I really grew because I was shamed and humiliated. I really grew. When did that happen?
Right.
No, I don't think that happens now. I think at best, we were talking about shame actually. I think at best, like me and Drew were talking about, I said I think shame is good to prevent someone from murdering somebody. Like, you should be ashamed if you murder somebody. Like, that's, I think, when shame is good. That's
okay.
what I think. But I don't know.
Let's back up here, though. Let's back up, because this is fun. Like, this is fun. This is probably not what you guys wanted. Like, we're on the sex talk talking about murder, but this is good because it's a common question I get. Right? I don't think you need shame to be the thing to tell you that it's wrong to murder somebody. Right? You don't need that. Now, some people literally do not have those mechanisms of emotional reaction to their behaviors. They don't understand their effect. They don't know how to empathize. But you're talking about a fundamental biological issue. It's not a moral issue. So that's why, like in our culture, it's really important, and the social creatures we are, we're pretty highly attuned to not want to offend people and to not want to feel shamed, because the reason why shame has such power is because what it really meant hundreds of thousands of years ago is, you were thrown out of the tribe, you will die. It's a death sentence. But in our day and age, I mean, really, we don't. I'm really trying to encourage people to use other tools, and my experience is the murder rates are as low as they have ever been in human history. Right? So we're talking about, I think it's like 1.25% chance that you will die at the hands of another human. There have been times in our history where it was a 25% chance and higher that you will die from another human in our history.
So things are pretty good. Things are pretty good right now.
They're really good, right? We've got all kinds of. I mean, we can have a conversation. We're in different parts of the world, and we can have a conversation on a computer.
So I mean, yeah, exactly. Wow, great point. Well, I think we have a lot of questions. Drew, do you have one that you wanted to ask him specifically?
Well, I think, getting back to your story, I think that it's centered around the concept of sexual energy. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on that, maybe for someone who, has never maybe heard of the concept, or might think that it doesn't exist, or, just elaborate on that, basics of what you teach with that.
Sure. So the thing with energy, the thing that I'm really speaking about, so we use energy as a way to describe an internal state. It happens to be a word that we kind of ascribe to sensation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are having problems in bed, when they're having problems with sex, when they're having problems with erections, when they're having problems with orgasms, it's because somehow this thing, the prefrontal here, like this thinking self, is interfering with letting go and being able to kind of move into that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system. And the flavor or the tone of I'm turned on, I'm feeling orgasmic, I'm feeling horny, this has a flavor, and we use, in air quotes, the word energy to describe that flavor, right? So it's a way, it's like energy is a way to label really a complex series of sensations that you can feel in your body. And part of what I teach people to the idea that sex doesn't happen up here. Sex doesn't happen up here. It happens in your body. Eroticism and like erotic sexual turn-on thoughts happen up here, but the sex happens in our bodies. And so that's really when I'm speaking of energy, I'm really speaking of the interaction of feelings in your body and the intersection of that with thoughts in your mind. And if you're thinking hot, juicy, horny thoughts and feeling lots of sensation in your body, this is kind of an energetic perfect storm for great sex.
Okay. Awesome. So it's not, what I got from that is that it's not like this concept of like waves shooting out from you or, you know, something like really out there, but really more biological.
Yeah, I mean, it is biological, though you may experience it as things shooting out from you. Mm-hmm. So your perception of that energy that's a very personal thing. In my experience, that's just different for everybody. And as a magician, I may actually amplify that sensation in you and really kind of focus like, yeah, feel the energy shooting out of your body, whatever. But that's just part of the awesome part of sex and being a human being. Like there's a lot of things at play. You don't need to know the magic trick for everything. You just want to go and have a great experience. And part of that is just, you know, like maybe you do feel energy shooting out, or you connect to the universe or whatever. Like those are beautiful things and completely viable and I think really should be brought into sex. Like why not? I think I want to be clear. Like I'm not talking about this is what sex is. It's friction. There's a realm of waking up to that. Wow, there's other things we can do.
Lawrence, you have a lot of great topics, and one of the things that we have, like seriously, I think I have this many questions, so I'm trying to get the core of them.
Yeah,
so
sure.
One of the core ones that we're definitely interested in, I think a lot of our viewers would be interested in, is multiple relationships at once. I think Drew called it polyamory.
Polyamory versus we just had some. Our last guests were all about the monogamy, the like soulmate kind of thing, finding soulmate or your twin flame.
Yeah.
How, like, what if you, like, my question is, how can you tell, if you're, because I think that kind of from both angles there are difficulties with polyamory and there might be difficulties with monogamy. How can you tell, like, what you are, or is there a way to tell? I'm just wondering if you could.
Okay, well, yeah. So this is the reality side of me. I already know what you are. Like, I don't have to tell what you are. I already know what you are, right? Do you have a penis or do you have a vagina? I already know what you are. Okay, that's why I say all roads lead to sex. So I don't have to take guesses about this. I'm not like, I've got this crazy theory. I already know what you are. So that's the first thing. The question is, we're so immersed in the cultures that we've grown up in, that in the culture, in the cultural mythology, right? And that is the purpose of mythology. The purpose of mythology is to tell you the rules, laws, operating instructions for you and your body. That is the purpose, right? The emotions are just kind of the unconscious policing of the cultural rules and laws that you have been taught. Okay, so that's the part that really people are blind to. Like, this really is a blind spot for us humans, because we think my culture is the right culture, my mythology is the right mythology. In fact, I don't call my mythology a mythology, I call it a religion, and I call everybody else's religion a mythology, right? This is what humans do, because it's just so, like, I can't be, incorrect about this. Like, I've got it figured out. This is just it's just a cognitive bias that we have. It's like a really like
an operating system. It's almost like an operating system.
It's an operating system. That's right. And the operating system across humanity is binary. That is what we've all been trained in. It's just a binary system. This is good and that's bad. And you can, like, even cats understand. Like, this is part of just what it is to be to be a being, an animal. Is we have a code, but the code itself is arbitrary, right? So you were saying to me, like, earlier, you were saying, Jacob, you were saying, like, it's bad to murder, right? But it's bad to murder in the culture that you are in, and at the same time, you would be, like, if one of your family members were threatened by somebody who was going to kill them, you would go, well, it's bad to murder except when somebody is threatening my family and is going to kill, like, a child or something. So in that case, I'm going to take some action, right?
Right.
And in fact, you would be justified in that action, right?
Yeah.
So, but there are other cultures where it's like the highest work, spiritual work, is to go and kill lots of people who don't agree with you, right? That's like, I'm doing the best work that there is. Like, I'm doing the holy work. So my point is, all of this, I'm taking extremes to make a point that it's culturally dependent, and sex is as well. I'm not saying ultimately morally right and wrong. I'm just saying the culture informs you of the rules and laws.
Right.
Okay. So
right?
What I got from what you said right there in response to Drew's question was that potentially, and again, maybe because you haven't given us your final answer, what I'm getting is that to whether you believe you have a soulmate or whether you believe you should have several wives or several partners at one time, that's dependent on your cultural references. That's what I'm getting.
That's right. And I also know where we come from, right? So regardless of you believe in a soulmate, the bottom line is, and now look, nobody's going to come on fucking Google Hangout and admit this, but I'm just saying.
What are you going to say? What are you going to say, man?
Right. I'm just saying that even if you've got a soulmate privately and in your private space, you've got your ways in which you're working out your sexual energy other than with your partner. Whether that's porn, whether that's, hey, I'm out kind of like checking things out, or it's a strip club, or it's a whatever. Or it's, I'm going to put on a hot dress and I'm going to go to the club and I'm going to, like, it doesn't matter, right? Our nature, our essence, we don't have time to get into this, so I'm just going to say on the surface, right, we're sexual creatures, and we have lots of stories trying to control all of that. So culturally, there is cultural monogamy, where the culture says whether it's a new age piece of like find your soulmate, which really comes from early Aristotle thinking, or you have a situation where you're like, no, I want to have many things, like Mormonism. So I want multiple wives and I want multiple relationships. Lots of people are quote unquote saying they do poly, but really they're doing Mormonism, which is the guy wants to fuck whoever he wants to fuck, and then his girl needs to be faithful. That's Mormonism. That's not polyamory. So what I'm interested in is just reality. Reality is we're sexual creatures. We have a myriad of tastes. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to be like, I don't believe you, I believe you. It's irrelevant. I don't care, man. Do a Google search, right? Do a Google search and you'll see what people are looking for, man. Men and women.
Fair enough.
You can get stats on what women, right? We're all looking at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
That's pretty fair. I mean, you're basically saying the market and its trends sort of show what people are interested in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
So I don't care. Like, I understand people have stories about stuff, and I don't want to ever pop their bubble unless they want me to.
Okay, I get it. I totally get your position. So here's, I think, the $1 million question, and I think it'll tell us a lot, because you have I think you got a lot of keys to the kingdom. In other words, you understand a lot of the origins, you understand a lot of the mythology, you understand the culturals. So then, I think then the $1 million question is, how about yourself, Lawrence? Where do you feel that you sort of land on that spectrum? If we could call it a spectrum for lack of a better understanding, where would you land on that spectrum as far as polyamory, soulmateism? Where do you feel comfortably that would express sort of where you currently operate?
Well, I'm a slut. I mean, that's where I am. So please call me a slut. Please.
Oh my goodness, that was the most comical moment ever. That got built up so well, and then you're like, well, this is what I think. Okay, so you're saying that you're more. I think what you're trying to say, or like to be serious, I think you're saying that you're open to relationships as they come, or you're dating several people, whatever that is. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a primary relationship, but I have zero. Like I exert, it means a primary relationship for 7 years. I mean, but it's based on reality, not on mythology, as much as human possible.
Okay, so the way I would get that is you have like your main girl, and then you all talk about these like realities, like we're sexual creatures, and then you sort of go from there. That's kind of what I got.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't want to like the whole idea of owning genitals is not a conversation I'm interested in.
Yeah, and that makes you. I think to me as a person, that's pretty evolved on some level, because it's sort of like a very evolved conversation to get there. To just say that sentence, it's a very well designed sentence. I'm not interested in owning genitals. It's like, what? But it makes sense, because we were talking about how me and Drew were talking about this last night. To prepare for this interview, I was telling him that without control, without guilt, without shame, without jealousy, without taboos, the sex market wouldn't be what it is. There wouldn't be prostitution. There wouldn't. I mean, because it would just be like people would just blow their nose and be like, "Well, I'm having sex, sure." You know what I mean? But the fact that it's held up in shelves, you can have it, you can't, you should, you shouldn't, this is bad, this is good, that allows the market to exist.
Dude, you just answered the slut-shaming question yourself. Think about what you just said, and now you'll understand what I'm saying. You literally just answered it. Right? That's why you want to take that conversation off the shelf, unless you're just owning it. Because it's like if you got rid of...
What would you call a person then that is unfaithful, that, the boundaries have been set, and the person, and an adult breaks those boundaries in the relationship?
I pay attention because this is I have a word for them.
This is good.
Yeah. I have a word for that person.
Yes, tell us.
You're not going to like it.
I'm going to love it.
Human being.
Okay. Human being. I think that was awesome. I liked it.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Okay, so...
Okay, right? So we're sexual creatures. We also have no way to converse about our deepest sexual desires. We don't have a cultural way to say, I want to go get gangbanged.
Oh my God.
Right? We don't have that. What's that?
Yeah, I was agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
we don't have that, right? So of course, a lot of our sexual behaviors are going to be done undercover and quote unquote cheating. But again, I am not in the conversation. I don't want to own anybody's genitals, so you can't cheat with me. It's not possible.
You took that out of your definition for yourself.
Right. Yeah, I don't like. You wanted to have an experience. You created that experience, whether you told me or not. I don't want to be your dad. I don't want to be your mom.
You're on another level in a way. I think, Lawrence. So. What I'm seeing here is that you're kind of on another level to me. I mean, to someone like myself, because what you are saying is that it's impossible to cheat on you.
It's impossible to cheat on me.
Wow.
I love that paradigm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't have that. See, like people are all fucked up about that. That's just not part of my storyline. It just again, I'm not even making that up. Like, I wish there was a like.
How many people do you know that could say that for real? That would say that sentence with complete conviction. You know.
Honestly, I don't know anybody, but I also know that I've done. Like, I literally don't know anybody who's doing the work on mythology and the stuff that I've done. I mean, I appreciate that because you were like, wow, it looks like you've done this, and this. And I don't know why it's me, dude. Like, I have no idea why it's me. I don't have any big story about why it's me. It's just I was able to put this stuff together maybe because I was the crazy dude who meditated for 20 years. And I went and I met the gurus. And I did the thing, and I got into the inner circles, and I saw how they were being about sex. And, like Sai Baba sucked little boys' dicks. This was like, yeah, dude. Yeah, this is a guy who was, like, literally, people called this guy God. Right? He sucked little boys' dicks. And so, what does that tell, like...
Yeah. Well, that says a lot. That says a lot.
Yeah.
So,
I've got one other story.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay?
Yeah, please.
Yogananda.
Yeah.
Yogananda, who's like all about transcend sex and all this stuff, like about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, time flies so fast, his illegitimate daughter on her deathbed was like, look, I spent my whole life in hiding. I'm dying. I've got to come out of the closet on this. I'm Yogananda's daughter. And I don't think she was the only one. So here's the guy who's like, I don't have sex. I've transcended. I'm this. He fucks somebody, has a kid, and basically shunts that slut out of his life because obviously she made him do that. It's nonsense. Right, so...
Yeah, I didn't know about Yogananda's daughter. I
was the one who met it. What's that?
I didn't know about Yogananda's daughter. I'm going to have to look that, because that's kind of earth-shattering a little bit,
Absolutely.
Well, it should be, man. That's why I deal with reality. That's why I say I'm like streetwise. It's like, I've done this enough. I don't know why it came to me to figure this out, but it just did. I've lived a lot. I've traveled a lot. I've seen things with my own eyes. And... I saw children die when I was 9 years old in Egypt. I took a trip to Egypt. And, it's like when you see things with your own eyes, all this mythology stuff about how the world is and we're love and we're there, it's all sweet, but it becomes very clear that it's just a lot of cultural stories in an attempt to try to... I get it. It's purpose. which is to create a kind of flexible adaptability that transcends genetics. So let me say that again. Mythology is a flexible adaptability that transcends genetics. So I don't have to wait a million years to get this little tiny change. I can tell you a cultural idea or a religious idea, and I can get you behind that pretty quickly. Like, it's not uncommon for an idea to change, and suddenly a whole group of people get behind it. In fact, billions of people get behind it. And then you are now part of this huge family that you couldn't be unless you had an ideology that joined you. Does that make sense? That's the purpose of mythology.
Yeah, there's almost like an integration, connectedness, control, like government. It all sort of exists, and it's all sort of put together by the love, almost by love as a sort of glue, even.
Mm.
Let me ask you these questions. Honesty. How important is it to a great relationship? How important is honesty? Important to great relationships and sex. How important is honesty?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to the cultural. For me, I so don't care, right? Like, you want to be honest, you don't want to be honest. Like, people are complicated sexually, so maybe somebody gets a lot of turn on by not being honest, right? So what I want to do is I want to play with people that I genuinely trust. If I don't trust you and I have to monitor your texts and your calls and your condom use and all that stuff, then I'm not going to be with you, right? So if I don't fundamentally have like a trust and an ability to communicate, I'm not playing with you, which gets back to kind of an earlier question you asked, which is really what my friend Reed Mahalko calls dating your species. It's like, I have a safer sex elevator speech. I will give that with every partner that I have. If somebody looks at me and goes like, "Merp? Like, what? My test results? Merp? You know what? Condoms? Merp? I don't like condoms. Merp?" I'm just like, those are all red flags for me, right? These are like, you're not my playmates. So I love it every time I get to filter somebody out or have a different discussion, because that's all. I just cut out like 10 years of drama.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I just was like, we are just so not on the same page. I don't want to figure that out when I'm in the bedroom with somebody. I want to know all this stuff as much ahead of time as possible. So if somebody has a high value of trust, the thing, I'm going to do a piece of jujitsu on you here really quickly. I'm going to say it's not my responsibility for you to create that sense of trust. It is your responsibility to be trusting within yourself. My experience is people who have trust issues and are really uptight about trust have those because they know themselves. And they know that they're like, I'm really faithful, I'm this, I'm that, and they're under all this pressure, and what they really want to do is they just want to bend that woman in the hot dress up over the table at the party and, fuck her. And they can't, right? Because of social issues, or maybe that's somebody's wife or whatever. And so there's all this like,
it's a projection. It's a projection.
Right, exactly.
Right. So I don't like, of course I want to, of course, like, my like, this guy delivered a pizza the other day, and he was like a specimen and a half, and my girlfriend was like, the pizza's great, but oh my God, he's so hot. And I'm like, of course, it's the most natural reaction. I don't need to trust or mistrust. It's like, there's a hot human. Okay. Yay.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's great.
Well, I have some other question. Drew, do you have one for Lawrence? I have some on self-control and stuff like that.
Go ahead and ask me more. I have to plug my computer in.
Okay. Okay. So the great goal, sexual. So a little bit about, have you read David Data's book, The Way of the Superior Man? Have you read that book?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know how he talks about self-control or controlling the orgasm, setting it up. He even talks about orgasming in the brain, not orgasming and stuff. what do you think about that? How important is self-control, meditation, and can someone use their sexual energy and transfer it to orgasming in their brain? You know, that those are kind of self-control, meditation, and orgasming through the brain.
Sure. So self-control, again, typically self-control is in a religious context or a cultural metaphor, because it's like really important that we control our males. So there is that thing, and it shows up in a whole bunch of ways. A lot of stuff that David Data teaches really comes from Taoism, which is a lot about orgasm control and cum control specifically, because they have a mythology that if you ejaculate too many times, you die. And so that was that's where he's coming from on the control issue, which is this, that the most precious, it just sounds absurd to even speak it out loud. It's just so silly. I've got this precious cum and it is my life force, and when I run out of it, I die. Okay, that's an idea. It's a bullshit idea, but it's an idea. So that's the first thing. Like, control, don't control, you want to come, you don't want to come, like, whatever, man. Really, what messes people up is what they believe about it. Right? So if I really deeply in my soul believe that every time I ejaculate I'm moving closer to death, well, of course I'm going to be really interested in control. So, right? And I'm going to talk to you all about that, and I'm going to be like, it's important you control. But I don't have that, man. Whatever. Like, do you feel better? Great. If you jerk off and you feel guilty and tired, don't do it.
Okay. So you kind of that's fair enough. So where's sort of the balance? What would you say is your goal? Because you have all these studies and these experiences. You've seen things. What is a good goal between? Because I know you talk about pleasure. I mean, I saw the video on you on YouTube where you're in the snow and you're like, look at pleasure. How do you know when there's an asshole? Because now you're not feeling pleasure anymore. You know what I mean? Right. So and we can all understand pleasure. Like, I love pleasure. Everyone loves pleasure. No, there's very few people who are going to say pleasure is bad. So
wait, I disagree with you. That's where you're wrong.
Okay.
Pretty much the whole planet says pleasure is bad. It's just our experiences, we like pleasure. Right? But the whole planet is saying, everything that you probably believe at the core of your being is that pleasure is bad in some way.
Well, I mean, I don't, not necessarily me. I like to, that's why I brought up the self-control, and I really wanted to bring you on the show, because so you have, what I'm saying is self-control, like, it was Dr. something, Dr. Lieberman, David Lieberman. He talked about how self-control is the key to higher self-esteem, and I believe that right now. I mean, I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm disagreeing with what you're saying, that it comes from a religious place. It doesn't mean I don't believe that Yogananda had a daughter. I agree with all those things. I get it. I'm just saying that I do think self-control has something of value, and I think that, and I saw and see some of your video about pleasure. So where's sort of is there a balance that you encourage, like self-control and pleasure, or are you kind of saying, go with the flow and just go with what you feel is best, or what's
Well, no, I'm definitely not saying that. That's a whole other crazy fucking bullshit mythology that's out there from this dude Jed McKenna, who's like kind of moralized flow and all this stuff. So there's a lot of what I call new age assholes walking around being like, it's not in my flow, and they're just hurting people and causing emotional damage. But hey, it's not my responsibility, just I'm in my flow. Like, no, I'm not saying that, man. I mean, like, the one paradigm I'm talking about is like an adult framework. Adult framework, right? So let's just say when I'm talking about pleasure is something we cultivate. Okay? Because your training actually, and if you're an exception to this, I'm like, seriously, that's awesome for you, because it's very rare. I meet very few people in real life who are like, yeah, I'm all about pleasure. My experience is that life itself will contain pleasure, like contain it, put a boundary around it, because pleasure is like what I'm really saying when I speak about pleasure is like the ability to sense, right? So one could say, well, was the ice were my
Hello?
Lawrence?
I'm just
Cut out
feeling
there.
what's that?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
It was
Okay.
real quick. We last heard about the ice. The ice.
Okay, right. So if my toes are feeling a lot of sensation, is it pleasurable? I mean, it's sensation. So what I'm doing is I'm creating this framework, like relaxing into sensation. My experience is that this kind of somewhere between too much and not enough is the sweet spot, right? And that's really what I'm looking for, and you as an adult have to determine that.
The sweet spot.
The sweet spot, right? So for you right now, having
self-control and pleasure. So get that sweet spot of self-control and pleasure. Like, that's what you're saying? Tune into that?
Well, what I'm saying is, I mean, yes, we could say it in those terms. What I'm really saying is somewhere between too much and not enough.
I think that alone was worth everything you said, because I think, well, for someone like me, I totally understand pleasure, like hedonism, like it's easy to understand. Eat what you want, have sex, just go out to strip clubs, whatever, just go. I mean, and then there's the other part of me, of course, that's like, well, what does this mean for your future? What are you going to do with your body? Is this going to affect your health? The things that, things like that. So,
right.
So I believe I am in that process of developing that sweet spot. Drew knows. I mean, I love the idea of balance. Sure.
Yeah, and that's really what we're looking at. I mean, because see, if you think that you're going to achieve happiness by just being like, I'm going to do whatever I want all the time, some of those people that are living that way are really the biggest assholes that I know. They're just, they're like spiritual superiority. I'm doing this. Oh, you're just trapped in. I don't live by fear. It's just more really shame and blame. Driven, what's that?
And it's really like it's ego driven when you kind of really get down to it.
Driven. Yeah, and it's more importantly, it's just another way to shame and blame other people, which is really the dominant way that our culture operates. We use blame and shame. So what the bigger picture here, what I'm saying is, blaming and shaming yourself isn't going to work. Blaming and shaming other people isn't going to work. Finding your sweet spot is an adult decision, somewhere between too much and not enough, right? And whatever that is what I call kind of a well-being state. In other words, I'm sitting here right now. I'm not in full body orgasm, but I could be. But I'll tell you what, on a scale of 1 to 10, man, I'm feeling like a 6 in my body in terms of like lots of pleasure, but I also have to pee, right? So not like that's reality. Like the reality is I'm feeling lots of pleasure and I have to pee. Like that's, do you understand what I'm saying? Like I don't need to get super heady about this because life kind of has its natural constraints. And I just trust those, and I'm looking for my sweet spot. But my framework is not blame and shame. My framework is pleasure. And so therefore, I keep my circle based in that. And so therefore, when people come in and they're trying to sell me shame and guilt and hell and brimstone and all of this stuff, I'm just like, no, thank you. My space is really clean. Life has been just fine with me learning through pleasure and through sharing and creating good feelings in people and having positive experiences. Like, life is great, right? So I don't need, like, anything you're going to add. It either needs to make my life more great or I'm not interested, right? So that's why I say the opposite of pleasure is more pleasure. What we've been taught is the opposite of pleasure is pain. That's the binary that we've all been programmed into. So in essence, when I'm Jacob, what I'm saying to you is just an upgrade in your thinking about that. If you understand it's not pleasure control, which is basically pleasure pain. What I'm really saying to you is the opposite of pleasure is more pleasure, but there's no universe where you're just going to be, I'm just in pleasure all the time, right? Because it's not how it works.
Right.
You're going to get hungry, you're going to get a cold, you're going to feel stressed out, but you can do things that overall make you feel good. Going to a strip club every night is not going to make you feel good. It doesn't matter because that's just some bullshit idea in your head.
That was just throwing stuff on the board, like whatever. Yeah.
But that's why I say like the sweet spot is what is sweet for you. I already know. I know dudes who go to strip clubs every night and they're miserable.
Yeah, naturally.
Right? Mm. It's like anything, man. If I'm eating all this chocolate cake, like the same chocolate cake, breakfast, lunch, dinner, chocolate cake, polyamory, monogamy. Like it's like we need to chill the fuck out and cut ourselves some slack, right? And find the sweet spot somewhere between too much and not enough. And that is the circle of pleasure. That's what I call the circle of pleasure. The circle of feeling good. The circle of well-being, which is really what we're talking about here. And there are no rules for that. There's no laws. There's no Bible that can teach you that. There's no book. There's no meditation book. There's no such thing because it's a very personal experience. And it's a very intimate experience.
I like it. I mean,
it's awesome. That makes total sense to me.
So, meditation, Lawrence, because I'm really into meditation. What can you tell us about meditation and its importance to you and to people?
So the purpose, honestly, the real purpose of meditation, we've been taught incorrectly. So what we've been told is that the purpose of meditation is to control your mind, diminish the ego. It's a lot about meditation. Really, at a fundamental level, is about control. So you're controlling impulses, you're controlling your mind, control. There's another way of framing meditation, and this is what I teach people, which is to focus on things that make you feel good, and then meditating on those. So it's a shift. Instead of focusing on the things that make you feel bad, oh my mind is like I have such a hard time and I keep falling asleep and which is how many people meditate. The reality is if you can find that place of quiet, sensation, breath, which for me I can drop into a meditative state in 20 seconds, like deep. And then I can just go deeper and deeper because I'm not caught in the structure. Like I don't have a belief system that says, well, I've got to do this and then this and cross my legs a certain way and focus and my mind needs to be quiet. No, the reality is you can just go inside, take a deep breath, begin to tune into the sensations in your body. And there may be some part of your body that feels good right now. I'm noticing my fingertips, like the sensation that I have to pee is really growing. The sensation in my fingertips is really open. So I'm going to focus on the sensation in my fingertips. Right? And now I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And now I can let that spread through my body. So I just moved into I shifted into a different brain state in like a minute and a half in the face of feeling discomfort. That's the power of meditation. Does that make sense?
Totally.
You became connected with your body and your sort of self. That's kind of what I got from it.
Exactly. Yeah. Without ideas. Like I'm not trying to be spiritual. I'm not trying to overcome stuff. So the difference.
You went to a place. You went to a place.
Exactly.
Something like that. That's Drew. Do you have some? I know that you were on a tight schedule, Lawrence. So you tell me how much time you have left, and we'll go with that.
We're good. We're good. I mean, I got a few minutes. So.
Okay, Drew, do you have any questions? I have several, like I said. So, Drew.
Well, all my questions were answered actually. Like
Wow.
that's great stuff. I love how real you are. Like it's very grounded in reality. All of your philosophies, and I thank you very much for that because it's spiritual at the same time, and that's most of the problem I've had with the spirituality stuff. It's just I'm just a very real thinker, type of person. So thank you. Those are some great outlooks.
Well, good. Dude, here's the thing. Like, the reason I'm out here, I'm not out here to save the world, honestly. The world, like, that's not why I do what I do. I was a very sincere young person with lots of questions because I saw a lot in life. I saw a lot growing up on the streets of New York. I saw stuff because I traveled a lot. And so I had these, like, deep spiritual questions. So as a young person, I was meditating by the time I was 10. I was learning Tantra when I was 11. I was having these experiences and, had really moved through, like, I started smoking pot when I was 12. I was literally done with drugs by the time I was 17. I was like, nope, don't need anything else ever again. I've never taken hallucinogens. I just had a bunch of, like, very deep questions that I really went down the path with great sincerity, right? So I reached a point in my life where when I figured this stuff out, and it was an enlightened, I woke up, right? That's the difference. Like, I didn't read something in a book and, like, I'm going to tell you about some stuff. Like, I fucking woke up, and I don't come out of the closet. I don't ever talk about this. I just barely, like, a very few people realize, but I woke up. Like, the whole enlightenment experience, I experienced. So the difference is I wasn't, like, 90 and I didn't die. I just started super early, and and I believe it was 1999, it just, like, boom, popped out of this sleep state, and I woke up, and I was like, holy shit, I'm looking at the same world, but it's completely different, right? It's completely different. So in this sense, like, you hear these Zen phrases, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. What they were really saying is, like, when you have this awakening, whatever that is for you, let's call this cognitive revolution, this awakening of awareness. I had the enlightenment experience. I had the Yogananda experience. Every book I went to, I was like, yeah, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the thing that I was looking for. But instead of saying, like, okay, I've got that, and now I'm going to sit in a cave and start a religion, I just became I continued to be a scientist. I continued to think critically, even though I was in a unitive state for 3 months nonstop. The unitive state is the state that non-duality people speak of. So a lot of the spiritual mythology that's out there is a lot of non-duality stuff. So there's a lot of shaming of the ego and the mind, because what they're trying to do is use shame and blame so that you shift into this unitive state where you realize there is no shame and blame.
Awesome.
Right. So that's the paradox of so many spiritual things. So the essence of what I'm saying to you, and the reason why I'm here doing this, is because I woke up, I continued to be a scientist, I attained enlightenment, I then went through this whole, like, oh my God, what the fuck have I done? I have completely wasted my life, right? Because the big joke of all of this stuff is that okay, now what? Right, so then it didn't change. There were lots of things where I continued to be a scientist. For example, I was like, okay, I'm in the unitive state, which I was. I see a hot girl. I don't feel like I'm her, but I'm her, because that's what the unitive state says. I'm in the unitive state, but yet this hot girl is not who I am, and I'm scared. And so then I just started, like, disintegrating all of that, and I went back to the drawing board. So it all led me full circle to, wait a minute, yes, I have had these experiences, but those experiences alone are not enough. That's why I understood why Sai Baba sucked dicks, because he was like, he was like, oh, I'm one, I'm in the unitive state, the little boys aren't real, they're just a reflection of me. This is delusional. And so I can do that, and I'm God, I'm one, I'm all this. But really, he was just in a delusional state. I did not stay in that delusional state very long. And that brought me to kind of the understanding that, you know what, yes, you can awaken. You literally can awaken. You can enlighten your mind. You can drop the cultural programming. You can live beyond social, you can live psychologically beyond social rules. You can really.
Looks like he cut out again.
He'll probably be back.
Right. I am. And then what I realized, and this is my point about this, is that as an enlightened being, and now, by the way, I'm that's why I'm using air quotes here, it's really important. Out of all this awakening, what I really did is just come back to just like being a human being. Right?
Awesome.
And so I've been to the mountaintop. There's no spiritual person who's going to bullshit me. I've been there. I can go toe-to-toe with the Pope. I can go toe-to-toe with anybody, any enlightened teacher. I understand their language. I'm like, bring it, please. So what that left me with is just that there are young people like yourself who are very sincere. There's a lot of crappy information out there. It already fits your programming. Most of it is binary and based in blame and shame. And I just want to change that discussion, because if I can save you 10 years of chasing down an empty path to nowhere, so that you can then come to and say, well, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not essentially an evil, bad person. Maybe my sexual impulses are not evil and bad. Maybe I'm just a person. And this whole monogamy discussion, the reason I can speak to you so clearly about it is because I see through it. Like, I see what it is. Like, I can just see it, because when you wake up out of this stuff, you wake up. You can't, like, I can't pretend, once you see there is no Santa, so to speak, you can't, like, go back and go like, oh, no, I'm going to pretend. Like, you can't. There's no, once you're out of it, you're out of it. That's why I teach, because...
You know what's really funny? Is I had a moment similar. I've been meditating, off and on, and the goal of enlightenment. Sure, it's there. I don't really take it so, it's my goal. I think it's kind of like the wrong thing to be so dead serious about. Like, if I don't get it, that means I suck. So yesterday at the gym, I had this great. I was feeling a lot of what did you say right now when you before enlightenment, the wood carries water? What did you say?
Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Or in your case, before enlightenment, pump iron, lift weights, cardio. After enlightenment, pump iron, cardio. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Okay. So I had one of those moments a little bit where everything was the same, and yet I was in a different state. Like, I felt like things were just understood at a whole nother level.
Beautiful.
It was like a shift. It was literally like
yeah.
Like the world had turned upside down, and yet everything was exactly the way it had been for 33 years.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Well, that is what I would call a kind of a micro enlightenment. A micro.
Yeah, I think it was sort of like a micro. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the world shifts, and you see the universe, and it's like identical but completely different.
Yeah, because it's sort of like your understanding it is different. Your understanding of it is sort of like you sort of see it working always like a clock, and you're like, I mean, it's just a clock. It's not really out to hurt you.
Right. Exactly.
You know what yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the interesting thing. When you live in a world of blame and shame, then fear, guilt, and shame are the tools of that world, right? That's the world that you and I inherited. When you start to pop out of that, for example, like if you're meditating and you're just like, I feel good, I don't buy the fear stuff.
Isn't guilt, fear, and shame then just marketing?
Yes, of course it is. It's marketing to sell you. That's exactly what it is.
I love it. Yes, of course it is.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, guilt, fear, and shame is marketing. Like,
well, so let's be super geeky about it for a second. Guilt, fear, and shame are part of your emotional midbrain. Marketers utilize your emotional reactions to manipulate you. So it is what really marketing is just taking advantage of these emotional things that happen in the unconscious level. So yes, guilt, fear, and shame are actual cultural things that have been wired into you. The marketing is tweaking that. The marketing is hitting that nerve and making you go like, oh, I'm so, yeah, oh my God, like I was talking to some relatives the other day, and they're just telling me how the world is just more dangerous than it's ever been, and I get it. For them, that's the reality. For me, awake, on the other side of all that, seeing all the mythologies out there, I'm like, bullshit, man. It's safer than it's ever been. It's more fun than it's ever been. I have more technology than I ever have. There's more drugs available. If I have some bizarre thing, there's more cures happening. There's more mind-blowing deliciousness happening. There's better foods. There's better hacks. There's better exercise.
I love your paradigms. I'm a subscriber to those paradigms. I love it. I love that attitude. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from, man, and that's why I'm sharing with you guys. I mean, that's why I was excited to be on this with you, because there's a lot of bullshit out there, dudes, and why I started teaching like this is just because life is short, man. Life is short, and you're going to go down the path, and you're either going to buy the marketing and the marketing of guilt and fear and blame, and one day you're going to wake up and go, holy shit, I've wasted 60, 70 years of my life. It's like, no. Like, start figuring this out now. And enlightenment itself is a mythology, but it's also something real. It is where you literally see through the delusions of culture.
How about this? Where you see through the manipulations.
Yes. Well, that's it. You see through the manipulations, but at the core of your being, as opposed to intellectually.
Oh yeah, where you could feel it, and the intellect and your feelings are in a dance. They're almost like dancing together. Yeah. Versus, well, I should feel this way. It's like, no, my feelings and my intellect and my overall skin feel good with the conclusion that things are fine.
Exactly.
Yeah, huge difference.
That's that's why I don't if you go back over this interview, you'll see there was a lot of times where I'm kind of digging my heels in on something. What I'm really pointing to is like, look, because I see it so clearly, that thing which you think is just, it's just a little harmless idea, it's not. It really speaks to the fundamental substructure that you're going to live by. So
I get it.
Right?
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I did notice you did that. That you said, well, let's take a step back, and you go, yeah, okay, that's pretty cool, man. By the way, I did subscribe to Yogananda's lessons. I've gone through like 75 of them. I've read his books. I want to go see the movie. I would call him one of my teachers, and I call him I say the word teacher. I don't call him my guru all the time. I understand that that's part of the that's part of the teachings. However, I think even Drew's noticed, I say teacher, and that's because I've never really held anyone to the light of perfection. I pretty much say, look, man, they're doing their best, I think, because I know that when I do my best, it's like, I don't think I'm perfect, I'm doing my best,
Well, right, and what I would really invite you to do, like if I were coaching you, and this is why I like doing the one-on-one work, is because like what I would invite you to do is I would say, okay, well, why don't you just put the whole perfection paradigm down and just see what life is like. When you started to hint to it where you were like, what if I live beyond blame, beyond shame, beyond guilt, beyond fear? What if you can actually run those simulations in your head and play the game of like, what happens if I put that down? What are these bad things that are supposed to happen if I'm not running around afraid all the time? what if my central nervous system is actually pretty regulated and I move through life not being afraid, but being in my pleasure, in my freedom, in my ease?
I think you'd have less stress and live longer, personally. In
Definitely.
theory, that's my immediate theory. I don't know. I have to test it. I'll test it today. I'm gonna test it today.
Awesome.
Now, Lawrence, before we let you go, I wanted to. You talked about your websites, and I subscribed once back before I met you, and I saw the presentation and everything. You talked about. Is there anything you want to just give the guests on a quick tip? Some of the lessons you give. I know that you talked about, for example, like feather fingers, stuff like this. Is there anything?
Right.
Is there any one tip that our viewers can take away with them to apply? One or two tips, and then of course he has a free gift for you all at lawrencelanoff.com.
Free-gift.
Yeah, / free gift, and we'll be posting these websites again for you all. But is there any takeaways that you want to give the viewers, like a tip they could use in their sexual life today?
Well, for sure. I mean, number one is, like, you're a human being. So, number one, like, you want to have better sex, then just start accepting your desires and start a dialogue. Like, have a conversation today. If you have a foot fetish, like, go to your partner and say, hey, you know what, I'm really been feeling a lot of shame about this, but I'm ready to talk about this and share this with you because I think it'd be fun. Right? So number one is just take an honest inventory. Like, that's something you can do today. Like, what are you really, really, really into? And that's part of feeling that sense of well-being, is just taking an inventory and being honest about the things that you really, really like. So the second thing, I can tell you, like, tonight, like, you can use this sex tip tonight. Slow down. Slow down. Just slow down. Slow everything down. Slow everything down. It's the difference between that, which is how most people are having sex, and then just going like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait. Wow, there's pressure, there's temperature, there's sensation, there's movement, there's, oh, the fine hairs on my skin. You know, like, slow down. And slow down again. Why? Because it's fun. And it feels good. That's why.
Right on, right on.
Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I know that you have to go, Lawrence, and you've been a lot of help. I think that after talking to you, there's a lot of stuff to think about and sort of stop thinking about some things. And I'll definitely give you...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The woman that I've been with for a while, she's gonna get this interview, and I know she's got a lot of stuff to talk about. So I know that it's gonna touch a lot of people. And I really liked how you brought the balance perspective. Like, you're not saying, you know, it's all about self-control, nor is it all about pleasure. Sort of finding that. I like the way you put it simply, the sweet spot. And I know I hadn't really seen you talk about that in some of your videos, so I really like that you sort of brought that to the table today.
Great, man. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, you guys are really, like, I appreciate you, you know, because your questions are really, like, smart and sensitive and thoughtful and insightful, and it gives me a chance to kind of really share openly. And so I want to thank you for that, because I don't normally get a chance to just be like, hey, here's how it's going to be. And I appreciate that, man, because honestly, if you get one idea from this, you know, from this hangout, if you walk away with one idea that just goes, you know, and there's just a slight degree change, boop, that over time could change your whole life, right? And you don't need me as a guru for that. You had an insight, and it altered something, and then you get to take that down the road. I mean, that to me is really why I'm here. So I want to thank you guys for just being, you know, creating a nice space for us to hang out. And
awesome, man. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So we're gonna share these websites with everyone again. So it's lawrencelanoff.com. Is there anyone that you want them to visit specifically, Lawrence, that would help them get started in their quest or the journey?
Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like that's going to be the best thing because I'm constantly trying to put up materials like questions, and maybe I'll even do one about the sweet spot because I think that's like that is really a really important thing. So I put up lots of ideas. I'm sharing ideas and thoughts and little tidbits to help you in specific ways. So I would say go to lawrencelanoff.com and then I have a free gift there. You can jump on my mailing list there, or subscribe to YouTube Lawrence Lanoff channel. Actually, yeah, you can look it up under my name, but definitely.
All right, that's lawrencelanoff.com. Get on his YouTube channel and subscribe to his mailing list, and he has a free gift for y'all. I wonder what the free gift is. Definitely sounds interesting.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there.
Right on, man. Well, thank you guys so much, and have a beautiful holiday.
You too. Happy Merry Christmas.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
All right, we'll see y'all soon.
Bye.